You're listening to a Halfway Network podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I have people skills.
Okay, but you're helping me with this.
This is a nightmare.
Oh, excuse me.
How can I help?
Oops.
Oh, it was just a nightmare.
This is Helpdesk Nightmares. This podcast takes a look at the interactions Helpdesk and support techs have on a regular basis and the nightmares we encounter.
It's unknown to me which episode this is. Let's look and see on YouTube which ones we already have up. That might have been 117. This might be 118. Hey! Oh wait, that's not it. No, this is 117. I was right all along. I don't have to change anything in OBS. Alright, so I'm going to do another Just Mark episode and give you some Reddit stories and this day in tech history. We don't have the most recent one that Cody and I did, and next week we'll have Mark, Cody, and Dave, and maybe a couple of others along with us. There's not going to be anything if you're watching the video over here to my left, to your right. That's normally where their video would go, but I didn't have time or the desire to create another scene in OBS. This Reddit user on Tales from Tech Support named Turbo Jelly, okay, writes, I'm still weak at the knees while writing this. Please forgive any spelling and grammar errors. I will not. 3.5 years ago, I started working for Company. They own multiple private schools around the world. I was given 2 schools to support. My first day at Site 1 was a horrifying learning experience. 2003 DC and a media drive that was literally an external hard drive plugged into a manager's computer at a school. Over the years, I have sent emails explaining with links just how truly awful these 2 things are. Supporting the server and media have been a bane. Over the last 2 years, Company has been running a countrywide hardware upgrade. All staff and students got upgraded computers, tablets, and laptops. Bet you can guess what didn't get upgraded? Over the weekend, head office finally moved all the staff files online. Yes, our 2003 DC was also the file server. Today, I had the glorious task of decommissioning the media, quote, server from the system. I went upstairs and entered the office. Caressing the drive, I methodically followed the cable back to its slot in the PC. Carefully, I slowly slide the USB cable out of the computer. A shudder passed through me as I felt the hard drives spin themselves down under my palm. Reverently, I picked up the drive and gently wiped the dust from its cover. Then I shook the shit out of the bastard. It felt good. This is not in a school, in a commercial environment, not the best way to have a media server for the school, a hard drive on one person's computer. You could set up an actual media server, maybe a virtual machine like Mr. Hanok now loves to set up or something. You could set up something specifically dedicated that would be faster and better and more reliable and has redundancy. It would be a better plan than a hard drive on a computer. That's painful to read, but fun. Another one is written by Bradley547. Who writes, back in the late 80s, I worked for a point-of-sale company. We served mostly the restaurant hotel industry. One of our lines was a fully programmable register with preset function keys. Standard. Basically, they were programmed with pictures of the food on the keyboard so you could use sub-minimum wage labor to run them. Mean. One of our customers was a sub shop, and I don't know where they got their employees, but these were not the best and brightest. Now, a quirk of these machines was the printer. You could use it to validate checks. You put the check in the printer and it would print the transaction number on it. I definitely remember stuff like this. And that wasn't even in the 90s, in the early 2000s, I think. Now, paying by check in restaurants is fairly uncommon, but it did happen back then. And at this site, this is how it usually went. Ring up the transaction. Enter the amount tendered. press the check transaction key. The display would then say insert check and press any key to continue. Idiot clerk would then say, I don't see the any key. I can swear as gospel that this happened because I heard it with my own ears as I was training them on the machine. Now, I could have changed the prompt to say press the check or any other key to continue, but me being a smartass instead added a new key to the keyboard and labeled it any. Problem solved. It's pretty fun. Another guy in the comments writes, I worked at IBM when PCs were starting to be everywhere. We actually had blue keys with any printed on them. We'd fit that key on one of the unused keys and be done with it. After you've explained that any key means any key on the keyboard multiple times, it just isn't funny anymore. I think that's why instructions started drifting toward press enter. People can be just unbelievably dense. That is better. So that's why I prompted to press enter will sometimes accept any other key I accidentally press. Yeah, absolutely. If you... That's actually hard to believe, though, that feels like an urban legend. Like, oh, and then they were looking for the any key. That's not... It doesn't seem like a thing that real people in the real world would do, but apparently it is. At least according to this person. Bradley547 could be a big liar. So, no way to know. Sorry if he is, Bradley. This was written by customer_is_wrong. I work in a chat-based call center. Ooh, that's weird. And this pandemic has caused customers to be crazier than usual. There's one guy chatted in about an issue with his product that ended up being hardware related. I gave him his service options, which were to either bring it to the store or mail it to our service center. He instead demanded that we ship him a new one instead of him bringing it to the store or mailing it in because he had been with X company for a long time. When I told him this wasn't something we offer, he demanded to speak to a supervisor. At the time, we were of course having system issues as well, so I couldn't transfer the chat to one of our chat senior advisors, so I let him know that, hey, we're experiencing some issues at this time with contacting our senior team. You are more than welcome to call X number to speak with them, or you can chat back in a couple hours and we will get you right over to them. He, of course, didn't like that and said no, he was going to wait on this chat until I get him a supervisor. He didn't care how long it took, he wanted to speak to one, and I was going to get him to them. Yeah, that's not... Jeez. I'm reading through the comments too. If you look up reddit.com/r/tales from tech support, these are pretty fun. So you should get to it. Get to it if you want. Yeah. This is not going to be fun for anybody to just wait while I read the comments. So, but go through it. You're not getting shipped. Some companies will do that. So Dell is one that we work with. That'll just be like, tell us what the issue is, and then they'll just drop ship you or ship you a new one next day if you have a support contract or it's in warranty. Some companies will do that. Not all companies will do that. Not all companies have to do that. It depends on what their policies are and procedures. So you just can't expect that from everyone, even if you've been with that company for a long time. Some companies will. They have enough to spare, and they don't need you to bring it back. Some companies want their stuff back so that you just don't just have multiple hard disks and you just keep saying that it breaks or some nonsense like that. This one's written by PG478, who writes, there's a frustrating situation I'm editing. I had some years ago with a client of ours whilst offering support on their point of sale terminal. There are lots of issues with point of sale terminals, apparently. I took a call from a client who said they were having trouble getting their computer to work. Okay. We all know why that's not a helpful ticket to submit. So after the standard 2 to 3 minutes of what she was referring to when saying the computer wasn't working, I realized that it was in fact the software that wasn't responding. So I asked her to press the escape key to clear the error. Anyway, she couldn't find the escape key, so I told her it's the button on the top left corner of the keyboard. She still couldn't find it. Me thinking, okay, point of sale terminal, maybe it's someplace else. So I got her to read some of the buttons' locations on the keyboard back to me. F4, F3, F2, F1, me. Yep, okay, good. You guessed it, still no escape key. And you can't stop them talking when they're on a roll. Anyway, after an awkward, frustrating several minutes of her announcing just about every letter in the alphabet and describing nearly every other button on the keyboard, she advises me that she indeed has a button in the top left-hand corner with ESC written on it. Could that be it? Oh, I'm not too sure. I was exhausted by this time. Can you try pressing that one for me instead then? Click. Yes, I fixed it. Great. Thanks for your help. Bye now. That's sometimes you have to be in help desk or IT with users. You have to be very specific. It doesn't say escape. We know that means escape. ESC. It doesn't just say esc. That wouldn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. So being very specific with users who maybe are not that technologically savvy is always helpful. Shouldn't have to. Should know by the time you're 20, 25, 30 that ESC means escape, or that there isn't a key that says any on it. It's literally any key. But here we are. This may be a short one. Maybe I'll find another one real quick. This one's written by the DigiDoc, who writes, working at a cellular retailer in a small town, about 2,000 people, I guess, in the population, is definitely experienced like no other. But some of the tech support happenings stand out to this day. Mr. Customer came in a few minutes before closing, hoping for a quick fix, getting his work email functioning on his work phone. It looked like he made an attempt at setting it up, but there was some key information missing. Serendipitously enough, I had interviewed for a potential job with his IT department not too long before, so I knew names and had contact info for their office. I called and got the necessary information and had a nice chat while entering it on his device. The whole time customer was in our shop, he complained bitterly about how technology was needlessly complicating our lives, how techies all think they're superior, the usual technophobe stuff. It was the end of a long day. There were no other customers in the shop, and I was getting irritated with his tirade. I definitely slipped into jerk face mode and started worming my way into his mind via his growing emotional state. It didn't take much. I started by asking about learning and changes in technology, and anytime I picked up on some body language or eye movement, I take the conversation in that direction. Within minutes, he was quite literally jumping up and down and yelling, "No, no, no, I don't want to learn, I don't want to learn, no, no, no," like a small child. At this point, I kind of snapped out of the mental place I'd gone to and realized what I'd done to this poor Luddite who just wanted to read emails on his phone. I finished with his phone, handed it back to him, and he was on his way, presumably to find a stiff drink. I got some terrified looks from my coworker while we locked up, which I shrugged off, and the day ended. But the sight of a full-grown man bouncing up and down and yelling has stuck with me since. The TLDR, people's minds are fragile. Sometimes it's better to just fix the thing and move on without creating any drama. Wow, that's intense. That's a little fun. A way to have fun with a user, but only you're having fun, which is not great customer service. So if everyone's not having fun, then it's not great. I know why that would be very frustrating, though. We did this one before. This week in tech history, this day actually, May 19th of this year, Apple opens their second store in New York City, a 20,000 square foot shop at the underground concourse of the General Motors building at 767 Fifth Avenue. Open 24 hours a day, the shop is visible at street level through a 32-foot glass cube. Designed by Apple CEO Steve Jobs at a cost of $9 million, which Apple definitely has to spend, people stood in line for hours prior to the store's opening. May 19th of what year? It's earlier, or newer, more recent than you would think. 2006. You don't get music this time. There's a lot of Apple stuff going on here. Let's try not to do that. Okay. The first, May 17th. Of what year? The first web server in history is set up by Tim Berners-Lee on a Next Cube at CERN, the European Particle Physics Library in Geneva, Switzerland. The launch of this first server is considered the public release of the World Wide Web. May 17th of what year? I'll give you a second. 19. So if you're thinking of 2002, late 90. One. Boom. You don't need more than that. If I give you more than that, then it's like, maybe you won't. Like next time, we won't have any. So there will be days between now and then, but it might not be good ones, and I skip the ones I don't like. Let's see. This one says it's a story about an unknown device. Haven't read it. Klee San writes, this story happened just this week. It was written 3 days ago. I received a ticket from a hair salon that read something like, the box-like device plugged into the computer doesn't work. Curious, I call them up. The following exchange ensues. Hi, so tell me about that device that's not working. Can you describe what it does, what it looks like, or if there's anything written on it? Yes, sure, but keep in mind I'm not very good at computers first. That's all right. I'm good enough at computers for the both of us. Okay, so it looks like a black box. I insert rolls of paper inside and the paper is supposed to come out, but it doesn't. You mean a printer? Yes, I wasn't sure what the right word that. I didn't want to say the wrong word. After I remoted into the computer, fixed something with the printer driver configuration, and the mysterious device once again sped out the rolls of paper after adding ink on them. Gotta love the users. This is a thing that we talked about before where users don't necessarily know the right words. So when I get a ticket from someone who uses the right words, it's pleasant. This is like they tell me what they've done, what actual thing is broken, and what isn't happening or is happening that shouldn't, and they use the right words. And it doesn't have to be networking lingo. They don't have to know everything. They don't have to know MAC addresses and IP addresses and IPv4, IPv6. They just, if they use the right phrases, the correct phrases, then it's like, oh, they know what they're talking about. This might be easy. If they don't, that's okay too. It just is more difficult for, we try to train users to say what specifically doesn't work. That's not enough information. Can you give me more details? Can you give me more information on that? Or what does that mean? My computer doesn't work. Oh, you can't get to this one website. That's because that website is probably down because every other website works. Stuff like that. Or it's not resolving, or it's got an error on there. So it's good to have them tell you the actual thing that's wrong. All right, so what else? We can look at maybe one more. I like to read long ones. Medium is okay too. If I can read down to the TLDR, if they put it in, then I can know, oh, it doesn't show me. So great, it doesn't have one. That one has way too much on it. Not going to do that one. All of this will probably be cut out of the podcast, but the video you won't get to do. You got to hear it all. I'll read this one. Don't know what it's about. Knife is Life 17 wrote this. This happened at an IT support job I had a couple years ago. The only context needed is that our client required specific ID cards issued to them to log into various systems. This is my first post. Okay, great. Didn't mean to read that part. The call started in the most amazing way possible. I answered the phone and was immediately greeted by a man who sounded very nervous and a woman screaming hysterically in the background that she was, quote, having a psychosis. The man explained that his wife had called us 8 times this morning. We had received a total of 5 calls in the morning, all from different users, and that she had waited 30 minutes in queue to even get to speak to us. Our support line did not have a queue. I asked him to explain what the problem is. My wife can't access critical systems that she needs. What are these systems? Is she getting any error messages? What are the systems? They're not working. They're not working. Could you explain what is happening when she's trying to access the systems? Could I speak to her directly? She doesn't want to talk to you. I refuse to talk to them again. The call basically went on like this. I was trying to ask questions to get information to solve their problem, but they kept throwing accusations or other unrelated pieces of information. We were unfortunately not allowed to hang up on clients, and after a while it came to this. Is there a problem with her internet access? Is her login card not working? They are breaking the law. She says you're breaking the law. Their systems need to be available. I'm sorry, this call has gone on for 15 minutes now, and you still haven't told me what systems you're trying to access. The systems need to be available. Yes, but there are no servers or services reported down in our system. I need to at least know what system she's trying to access if I'm going to escalate this. But before I can do that, I need to be sure that it's not just a client-side issue. He says he needs to know what systems you're trying to access. Can you show me? Tell them. You should know that she has friends in insert generic management group, and if this isn't solved now, they will get involved. They will fire the shit out of him. I was quiet for a few seconds because I did not expect this, although the thought of being fired from the job kind of seemed nice at this point. I'm sorry, I don't know who they are, but could you please tell me what the issue is when she's trying to access the systems? Instead of answering the question, the man asked for the number of my boss, which I provided. He then proceeded to threaten to call that number that I'd just given him unless I solved the issue and fast. All right, just try to access the system now and tell me what happens. He says to try and log in now. A few seconds passed. It's not working! Loud bangs. Now, I'm not sure if all these years in customer support has destroyed my brain or if this genuinely makes sense, but as soon as I heard that noise, I realized she was slamming her login card on the keyboard. What card reader is she using? Card reader? Loud bangs continue. Why can't it just fucking work? If her computer does not have a slot for cards, she needs to plug a card reader into the computer. That sounds overkill. Why? So it can read the card and log her into the system. Then why don't we need a card reader everywhere? You only need them for some of our systems. No, like in general. This is bullshit. We don't even own a card reader. Hangs up. They called again later, and my colleague was the lucky guy this time. It turned out she wasn't even using the login card that the company had issued for her. She was slamming her driver's license against a laptop keyboard and expecting that to authenticate her to the systems she was trying to access. Most of our clients were better than this, but there were a few calls that, when I write them out, they just look completely unbelievable. Even so, I found that being tech support is often like being a free therapist that you're allowed to shout at. Even so, I did generally like the job for the remaining time I had it, and eventually switched to work with back-end MSP. Yelling is fun. When you're doing, Helpdesk, if you're a tier 1, particularly, you work in the Helpdesk, is a customer service spot, which is hard to keep your cool when, if Helpdesk is your only job, you get all kinds of calls like these all the time, every day, and that's hard to keep your cool when multiple people, they're calling you because they're pissed off because something's not working. And if it's not your only responsibility, then you're handling your other pieces of your job, including doing IT support and Helpdesk, and people are calling and yelling or not giving enough information, and it's taking up time to try to figure out what's actually wrong when they could say that in the first place. So it can be very frustrating. Customer support is not easy. First responders and IT, not the same as COVID-19, sorry. But essential workers, for sure. So I know lots of IT folks that are essential workers. Somebody's got to be on premise, and it's usually them. So there you have it. We're going to end very quickly. This is a shorty. I guess I can read one more. I like reading the Reddit stories. I don't have anything else to cover, and I could tell you what I've done this week, but I have been quarantined for another 2 weeks, so I haven't done or anything or gone anywhere. Thank you, coronavirus, COVID-19. All right, _Marine writes this last one. I'm a trained firearms instructor for the Marine Corps, at least when it came to range activities. Taught the classes where Marines all sit, prone, stand, shooting at the barrel with the targets, basic CQB shooting. Don't know what any of these words mean. We're troubleshooting an XYZ PBX phone system and a property we own that's installed in the mid-90s. Now have to call in a company who knows how to actually troubleshoot the parts. I can do some work on them, but it's mostly command line moving lines that I'm familiar with. These PBX parts generally have to be removed, sent in to be refurbished as new parts just aren't available. This company also did the original install in 1990-something, and the contact I normally speak with about the system has retired to a warmer state. Lucky. So new tech Bob comes in. He also assisted in the phone system setup in 1990-something, but I've never spoke with him previously. So Bob and I get to chatting when he comes in, gets around to firearms as I see he has a sidearm when he took off his coat. Ooh, wow, okay. Odd he's packing open carry, but you do you. I never carry on the job, but do carry conceal on my off time. These are gun people. I can't relate. I mentioned I was a vet and asked a few questions about the gun and get a text from the boss asking how things are going after Bob's been there about 30 minutes. Look down to answer, and when I look up from my cell, the dude had pulled out his sidearm, removes the mag, and just hands it to me, muzzle first with the muzzle pointed downward. I in no way asked to be handed a weapon. I don't know the dude at all beyond the 10 minutes we've been chatting during the 30 or so minutes he's been around. He didn't clear the chamber or show me that it was empty, nor confirm that the mag was empty. Muscle memory took over, and I immediately removed the weapon from his possession, checked that the mag is removed, and racked the slide to lock it back. And, of course, in doing so, out flies a round from the chamber. Now, it was a dummy round, but he still handed me a weapon with a round in the chamber, and without him verifying with me the mag was well clear, nor that there was a fucking dummy round chambered in there too. At this point, I'm slightly stunned. After clearing it, examine it, and quickly hand it back in a safe manner, he picks up the dummy round, puts it on top of the mag, and chambers it back in the weapon, and pulls the trigger on the dummy round. I was about to leave to call my supervisor, and then he hands me his conceal carry back up the exact same way. Legit, I was too stunned at the dude to speak immediately. I'm not afraid of the weapons, but Bob came into our building with loaded firearms and was just handing them to me in a potentially unsafe manner without my asking to handle them in the first place. I hand them back, having locked back the slides and showing empty chambers and clear magwell before doing so. Bob doesn't even put them back into his holsters and leaves them sitting on his coat behind him. Wait 5 minutes, say I gotta go pee, and call my supervisor. 10 minutes later, there's a cop escorting the dude out with clear instructions that he's no longer welcome. Bob probably wasn't a direct threat, but his careless handling certainly was. The issue was power-related on the digital card carrier and needed sent out and refurbished. But hey, phone system was fixed. Took a few weeks longer as we had a nice conversation with the vendor about the behavior of their tech. Of all the things I expected to be handed while working in IT, this was not one of them. I have never been handed a firearm while working in IT. I would not take a firearm if it were offered to me, and I would not have stayed in the room. I would have called as soon as I saw the firearm because it's not an appropriate thing to do. So this must not have been a secure location or a location that cared about firearms. I'm trying to look and see where he said. And a property that they own at the company. So I don't know why anyone thinks it's a good plan to bring guns to work. Amazing. If you're maybe in a rural area, I hate that word, in a country area where there's not a lot of people around, maybe, but if you're in like where businesses are, don't carry around your guns. Not a fan of guns. And that will be the end of my rant on that. It's not a very long or bad one. This will be the end of Helpdesk Nightmares this episode. It's a quick one. It's a brief one. It's quicker when you're just talking to yourself. So we will be back next Tuesday at our normal time, 7:30, not 9 o'clock p.m., with Cody, Dave, and maybe a guest or two. And thank you for listening. Let's see if we can do the outro here.
You've been listening to Helpdesk Nightmares on the Halfway Network. Helpdesk Nightmares is created by Mark E., Cody T., with Dave G. It is edited by Mark E. It is produced by Mark E., as well as our producers,
Mr. Hanakna, AJ Y, Diana Y, and Alex A.
If you like the show, and for others like it, check out www.halfwaynetwork.com. Leave us a review on iTunes so other people can find us. Follow us on Instagram at Helpdesk Nightmares. To become a patron, visit patreon.com/Helpdesk Nightmares or visit www.helpdesknightmares.com.